Hi everyone, welcome once again. It's Root Access. Ryan Ritchie, Jamie DeGrazia, former Mac genius.
Holiday edition here.
The holiday edition, we've got pre-Macworld, and not just pre-any Macworld.
It's what?
The last
Macworld.
For all intents and purposes. I'm sorry, if you have Macworld without Apple there.
They're saying it's going to be, continue after Apple, though.
No, it's not going to happen.
You don't think it's going to
We were talking, I think 1 year. I think you were.
Yeah, I think you're right. 1 year and then it's done. So we'll enjoy this year.
We'll do our best. And don't forget, live coverage during the Macworld keynote that comes January 6th. Coverage begins at 12:30 and keynote at
11:30.
11:30. Coverage will begin at 11:30, I'm told. The keynote begins at 12. Well, so it is indeed the last Apple keynote. There's been a lot of speculation as to why. Mm-hmm. Is it just because, we want to release products on our own schedule?
Yeah.
Is it because something's wrong with Steve? What? Before we get into what the internet says, what's your gut say?
Well, I think one, trade shows are very expensive, and we're in an economic downturn. Mm-hmm. So it's it's very costly for Apple to continue doing a trade show. Obviously, they spend more money there than any other vendor.
Right.
The other thing is, for years there are expectations that need to be met at January. Mm-hmm. So whether a product is available or not, you have to have something to unveil. And if people are disappointed in that product, then the stock takes a dip. Quite often they would announce product in January that wouldn't ship till March. I think there was, the PowerBooks at times were announced in January, didn't ship till March. So why even announce them? So I just think maybe the big trade show is a thing of the 80s and 90s.
But at the same time, Apple kind of fed into it, because when you think back, the biggest one I can think of off the top of my head was the G4 iMac.
Yeah.
And they kind of fed into all the rumors leading up to, this is beyond the rumors, get ready. And then they announced it at Macworld. And so it seems to me that January, you've just gotten through the holidays, and it seems to me you're ready to have fresh product to drive sales for the next year. So I think that's going to be the case. I think that's why CES takes place in January.
Sure.
And so for them to make it seem like, we don't want to have our hands tied by someone else's schedule, I can tell you right now, I think if Steve got on the phone, if he can still pick up the phone and call IDG and say, we need Macworld to be 2 weeks later, or it has to be in February, it has to be in March, they would do it.
Well, but the Macworld has to be planned out. A date has to be set for that, months in advance.
Sure,
not
but
a year in advance.
If January is not convenient, and frankly, just from us trying to communicate with folks at Apple, they're off for the holiday break, and then this big ramp up real quick for Macworld, it's tough.
Well, it certainly always seemed weird that it was the same week as CES.
Right.
So you had websites like Gizmodo and Gadget, they would leave CES, fly to Macworld, stay there for the day or two, and then leave Macworld and fly back to CES. That seems strange.
We don't pick up nearly as many frequent flyer miles.
No, we don't. Apple is a different monster than they were, when Steve first came back or in the late 90s. They can basically dictate the rules. So if they have a product they want to announce, the new Nano or the U2 iPod or whatever, they can just pick up the phone, they can send out a press release, and people will come to them. They will come to the Cupertino campus.
And again, of course, we would be remiss if we didn't mention the iPod Hi-Fi was one of those events.
Exactly. So most of them have been good, but there's a few bad events. But so they can still have that build-up. They can still have, the rumors that sort of fuel the fire.
Sure.
And then they can just call their own event.
Okay. But looking at it a different way, Macworld was one of the things that set Apple apart for the faithful.
Sure.
As far as the people who are committed to the Mac operating system, the OS 9ers out there, and earlier. Is Apple kind of saying here, well, we don't need you.
Well,
we're making our money on iPods and iPhones.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this in past shows that I think it's kind of evident now that Apple doesn't. I don't want to say don't care about those people, but not like they used to, because they now appeal to a much wider audience. There are people coming in, buying iPhones and iPods who don't necessarily have a Mac. Some of them might not even know that Apple makes computers. They just know the Apple for iTunes and the iPod, and so it's important for them to reach those people probably more than the Mac faithful, the kind of people who come to our site, the people who read the rumor sites. They're gonna be there regardless.
They can still come and see us.
They can.
Now,
We're here for them.
So let me ask you this: what do you think this means for WWDC? Because Apple obviously wants to still meet with developers.
Yeah, they still have. I think they still have to do that, right? I mean, other companies have. I mean, Microsoft and other big publishing, big software companies have events geared towards their developers, right?
I think it would be nice to see maybe a few days tacked on there that perhaps are for the fans. Maybe there is kind of more of an expo feel to part of it, but without the pressure. Although that's another event where they tend to announce things. Usually it's more software related, new operating system, which might be one of the things we get this year as well. And we didn't even touch yet on Steve Jobs and potentially his
departure.
His departure, one way or another.
You're asking my opinion.
No, we're going to get to that. We'll get to that in the next segment. So keep watching. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Don't forget root@thedigitallifestyle.tv to send in your emails.